This is going to be epic, and that is because, my friend, this is the review and lore of my favorite statue or action figure from World of Warcraft. Ladies and gentlemen, today with me, Maraad the Vindicator. I put together his journey in the lore book, an emotional roller coaster that's going to awaken some thoughts in you with regards to the purity of paladins, especially retribution paladins. So I hope you're ready. Go get a shiny red apple and some water, and let's get going with this review and lore. You will see that on my table here I have several figures, and that's with a purpose. I've got Rhaegar Earth Fury. He is a shaman and a former slave, but he is an orc that is corrupted by demon blood, the nemesis of Vindicator Maraad. On the other side I have Illidan Stormrage. They don't really meet, but this guy is a demon as well, and I can tell you already by now that Maraad has a thing for demons, especially orcs under the influence of demon blood. Let's get started with Vindicator Maraad. I'll start with a quote.
A wandering warrior of faith, Vindicator Maraad is a pillar of Draenei society. After prevailing against evil in the Northrend campaign, this hammer-wielding paladin began instructing the other races of the Alliance in ways of the light. Exposure to Azeroth's myriad dangers has left Maraad prone to action above meditation. He will strike while others tarry. Blizzard Entertainment.
Maraad was a Draenei Vindicator on the planet of Draenor, a retribution paladin in the service of the Holy Light. In fact, I would call Maraad the epitome, the pinnacle of a retribution paladin, both for better or worse. You'll understand why as I go through the lore. So Maraad fought in many wars against the Burning Legion and the bloodlust-crazed, demon blood corrupted orcs. I have actually a full video about that, about the Burning Legion, and maybe you should watch that first so you can get the full experience of how the orcs became influenced by Sargeras, by Kil'jaeden, to start attacking, murdering, slaughtering the Draenei on the planet of Draenor that made them flee to Azeroth. Maraad, he was a strong soldier, the manifestation of the strong arm of righteousness. He wields, as you can see in the figure above here, right next to me, the Hammer of the Naaru, which could also be looted from High King Malgar in Gruul's Lair in the Burning Crusade expansion. I think you still can get it now. I also took it for my transmogs in my Paladin, on my Paladin. The hammer is very symbolic for paladins, and that's mostly thanks to the cinematic at the beginning of the Burning Crusade. He is very strong and imposing in that trailer. Let's start with the first chapter, which I called Before Outland. So Maraad, he spent much of his time in Shadowmoon Valley, one of the 8 large zones that we also get to explore in the Warlords of Draenor. Shadowmoon Valley was back then a lush, idyllic forest, home to a beautiful and sacred Draenei tomb and sanctuary, the Karabor. Later in the history of World of Warcraft and earlier in the expansions, it is where Illidan the Betrayer establishes a home base, the ruins of Karabor, or the Black Temple. So we defeat Illidan the Betrayer in the Black Temple, but that's the ruins of Karabor, The Shadow Moon Valley is before the world was corrupted and destroyed by the demons. Maraad, he is a member of the Vindicators and one of the largest followers of Akama. Not the broken Akama that you probably know from the Burning Crusade, but one of the 5 strong military leaders or exarchs of the Draenei society, under the command of Prophet Velen. There is an extra understory to Maraad, and that is Garona Half-Orcan. You see, a while after the Horde was incorporated, Maraad's sister, called Liran, she was captured by the Bladewing clan orcs. They resided somewhere between the Terokkar forest and Nagrand. Upon hearing that his sister was kidnapped, Maraad and many other Vindicators, they urged the Draenei leaders to act.
It is time to eliminate the Bladewings once and for all,
they said. Prophet Velen was sending scouts, and he sent a scout to investigate the Bladewings. He sent the Rangari, or Eyes of the Prophet. They were a group of Draenei scouts and rangers who silently stalked the farthest ranges of Draenor, the farthest corners of Draenor. The Rangari came back with horrific stories of gruesome sacrificial rituals to appease the elements. Remember, all of these orcs, including the Bladewing, they were still under the command of Gul'dan. Only a few prisoners captured by the Bladewing, they were spared from these sacrifices. Maraad urged, and Velen he reluctantly agreed, to send an offensive to storm the Bladewing and try an attempt to rescue Liran. It was unfortunately too little, too late. By the time that Maraad, the Vindicators, and the Rangari arrived, Liran and the other captives, they were already dead. At the sight of his sister's body, Maraad, he went into a blood rage. He rampaged through the entire city, the village, slaughtered every single one of the orcs present there. What Maraad did not know for a long time after that was that before her death, Liran, she gave birth to a daughter. Her daughter was half Draenei and half orc, which, given the relationship between the orc and Draenei, it tells us that that relationship was not consensual. Liran's daughter, and therefore Maraad's niece, was named Garona Half-Orcan. And upon the destruction of the main Bladewing village, she fled into the forests of Terokkar, traveling east until she met and also was recruited by the Shadow Council. The Shadow Council was a group of mortal warlocks, mostly orcs, who served the demons of the Burning Legion. They were a clandestine organization, independent from the First Horde, but who still exist this day to day, and they still recruit in different parts of the world. Many years later, Maraad, he actually learns about the existence of Garona. He makes it his quest to search for her, and this actually lasts for many years before he manages to find her. But at some point, Maraad, he befriends Khadgar, somewhere before the Dark Portal reopened. And this is where we open another chapter, or the next chapter. I call this Medan. Khadgar, after becoming friends with Maraad, he fills in the gaps about Garona's past for Maraad. He tells Maraad about what happened to her after she left Draenor through the Dark Portal and up until the end of the Second War. Khadgar knows quite a bit about Garona from what you can hear there, and that's because he had a relationship with her, and even more, they had a son together, Medan, the son of Khadgar and Garona half-orcan. Here's a prophecy.
When the child of the three realms becomes as light, the ancient power will be released. The earth will tremble. The seas will rise up in answer, and all will be madness. A new day will dawn, bringing with it chaos or peace.
Interesting. Medan, he is half human, quarter Draenei, and quarter orc. He can interweave shamanic magic with arcane and divine. That makes him very powerful, but also a subject to many cultists trying to hunt him, so he's in danger. Also, it makes him subject to the old gods trying to control him. And if you don't know much about the old gods, it's very fortunate because I have a video about that. The old gods and about the Burning Legion, Sargeras, all of those I covered in a video about the Burning Legion. Go see that if you haven't. But at some point, Maraad, he finally finds Garona and secretly rescues her from Theramore. And there he reveals to her that he is her uncle and Medan's great uncle. He also explains what happened there in Bladewing. Gul'dan had bred Liran with one of his strongest warriors. So that makes Garona also a very strong warrior. That's not a bad thing. Maraad stays a bit and fights a bit more in Theramore to defend against Cho'Gall's minions, and then takes Medan to Outland, out of the reach of the old gods, and he also helps Medan with furthering his training. But let's go back to Draenor, back in time again. I earlier mentioned that Maraad is the embodiment of retribution as a paladin. An example of that was seen at the Bladewing village when he just went full bananas and just exterminated every single orc in the village. But it gets more intense and it gets darker. The next chapter is called The Siege of Shattrath, because it was brutal. You see, Shattrath was the capital city of the Draenei on Draenor. No mercy came from the bloodthirsty orcs crazed by the demon blood offered to them by the warlock Gul'dan when they had the opportunity to drink the blood of Manoroth and ripe the benefits of that extreme strength but also bloodlust that came with it. They were doomed for life to serve Kil'jaeden. This is depicted in Blizzard's cinematic of Maraad in the expansion Warlords of Draenor, the Siege of Shattrath. Maraad, he was there at the Siege of Shattrath, where the orcs laid waste to the capital city of the Draenei. When military leader Exarch Laro here, he orders Maraad to take a group of refugees to safety, he does so. However, in the process of guiding those refugees to safety, he sees an orc leader within reach for attack. Maraad was sure that the path was safe for the refugees and ensured them that the light would safely guide them through the passage. He let them go and went after the orc to exert retribution on him. He was filled with rage against the demonic energy-infused orc, and Maraad simply pulverized him. He struck with such great power. Because of the sheer rage, strength, and determination in the Draenei's blow, Maraad breaks the head of his Hammer of the Naru. Retribution is served, but at what cost? When he goes back to reunite with the group of refugees, a gruesome reality faces Maraad. The path had not been safe. All the refugees were dead, slaughtered by the Horde. All Draenei women and children. Maraad had sought vengeance against the orcs ever since. The light faded from his hammer that day. He was glowing until then. Not anymore. That was a sad story. However, Maraad had a shot at redemption afterwards. This episode, you see, it chased him the rest of his life. He failed his sister. He failed to save the city of Shattrath. He failed to save those refugees. He is now filled with episodes where he fails to protect the ones he loves. In Warlords of Draenor, Maraad is the main catalyst for making Varian Wrynn sign the declaration of war against the Iron Horde. It makes sense. He had one more chance to save his honor and history. Varian Wrynn was insecure, not safe whether these warlords of the Iron Horde could be defeated. He did not know them. However, Maraad, he had experience in fighting these Horde warlords. He knew their weaknesses, and personally, Maraad, he would kill two birds with one stone. He would get his revenge on the Horde, and he would get another shot at saving Shattrath. Long story short, Maraad leads the defense against the impending orc invasion. Then he becomes a part of the offensive, destroying the Dark Portal. He and Thrall were the first ones to enter alternate Draenor. Maraad, he was also the first to enroll for the attack on the Iron Horde.
Nothing would stop Maraad from saving Shattrath.
When the orcs attacked Shattrath on alternate Draenor, Maraad stood with Khadgar and Irel and planned the counterattack. Maraad, he was amongst the defenders, and in the harbor of Shattrath, on a ship, he battled Warlord Blackhand together with Irel. Blackhand mortally wounds Maraad, but with his last power, the Vindicator creates a bubble of holy light around Irel, which saves her life from a projectile that exploded on the dock of the ship. After that, Maraad gave his last breath, and the final words to Irel were,
"In the light, we are one."
Maraad receives a hero's death, as my last chapter is called. He died saving the city he failed to save before, and his body is teleported by Khadgar back on the ground. Maraad was cremated and his ashes were put back into Auchindoun, and he is ultimately seen as a ghost in Auchindoun. Irel fights him as a ghost, as a part of her trials for the Exarch Council, where she defeats him and they bid each other farewell. Now you've heard the name Irel a few times until now. She starts as a naive priestess on alternate Draenor, but she gains combat experience throughout fighting the orcs and training and joining us, the Alliance. We find her being held as a captive, as a slave, by the Iron Horde at the beginning of Warlords of Draenor, the expansion. She joins us from there, grows a lot as a character, and ultimately becomes this strong retribution female paladin who was wielding a shield and a one-hand weapon. Upon Maraad's death, she picks up the hammer of the Naru that belonged to Maraad and throws her shield and one-hand weapon to the ground in honor of her savior, Maraad the Vindicator. And this, my friends, is the story of Vindicator Maraad from Draenei. I hope you enjoyed this. This, in my opinion, is a very strong story that encompasses a lot of feelings, a lot of tragedy, an emotional roller coaster, but it also opened my eyes to how much retribution, hatred, rage there could be in a Paladin. I play Paladin from the very beginning of World of Warcraft. That was my main class, and it changed my vision of a Paladin. He ultimately dies a hero's death and saves the city that he initially failed in saving and protecting. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was different than what you were used to. And I will stop this here. Next time we will look at the statue and make a review of Maraad the Vindicator. Thank you for watching.